Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian owned, not to control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 650. Living trust equals public. Definitely thank everybody for wanting to click on this particular episode. Living trust equals public, and once again, we do our episodes because we have consultations that come in weekly, daily. And this particular consultation, they came on the line and said they wanted to go private, but they had only a living trust. So, how are you going private when you're only in a living trust? And a living trust is public. People would like to think that it has some level of privacy to it. The fact that it's called a living trust says that it's public. So we always work with our trustees in the capacity of having the Black's Law Dictionary. A lot of trustees come through, they learn about what's called a Black's Law Dictionary. And so we work with our trustees on a one-on-one consultation basis. We go over these lessons. This particular lesson, living trust equals public, it's just something that comes to us in consultations. This came to us for many years, and we're at it again because there's times where this becomes a popular vehicle for people in the public to operate. But for the individuals and families that say they want to go private, this is not a private vehicle. It is a public vehicle. Traditionally, it's actually still open for the fact that either the beneficiary is the grantor or the beneficiary is the trustee. So it sounds like traditionally the trustee is either the grantor or the beneficiary. So we have people that come through and they'll say, "Oh yeah," we'll ask them who created the entity. Sometimes they can answer, sometimes they cannot. Sometimes they reply, "Well, they did." That's what they say. They say, "Oh, I wrote the document myself." That's what they say. Well, it's living. And so when we engage with families, we make sure that they are aware of what position to be in and what position not to be in. Their beneficiaries, what position they should be in and what position they should not be in. It's all about arm's length distance dealing. We get the families that want this, but you have to implore this. Implementation and execution is very simple in this sector. And that's why it's so beautiful to get the job done now than ever, where you can be the best trustee you could possibly be. You don't need to do business in a living trust. You're in private trusteeship. There is no, "Oh, I need to go into the public and doing a living." People, they reach out. Sometimes they only running in the living. Okay, well, there's 80 different types of so-called trust vehicles. This is what we hear. This is what we heard. It's just a contract. Right, but is it living or is it private? Because private is not living. Private doesn't have public laws in it like living does. So we definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Always appreciate everybody tuning in live, listen, replay. Feel free to type into the chat where you listening live in from or where you listening to replay. Always appreciate when people type into the chat, even on the replay, where they listening from. We got people that are listening from all over the world. We always appreciate everybody. Living trust equals public. Trust Christian, I thought I got a private education. How? But you in the public trust. How you have a private education executing private information and you're in the living public trust? Private people aren't in living trust, ladies and gentlemen. That's actually a public entity for public people. And they make that very clear. That's why they go to public attorneys. Some people say, oh, well, I didn't go to an attorney, but I still have a living trust. Then it's public. How do you make a living trust private? Think about it. The structure of the contract says that's what makes the contract form in nature called living. Because whoever you are, maybe it's you, you're alive as the beneficiary or you're alive as the trustee. You may be even alive as the grantor. Is it revocable or irrevocable? These are the questions that when we get families on the line, then they come on and they ask these questions. Families say they want to be private in 2025. It is the year of super privacy. We've seen people want to acquire these AI tools, these various different tools. Now it's time to execute with these tools. How many families are executing with these tools? The families in the private are executing with these tools. We see deal after deal after deal, ladies and gentlemen. In the private sector, this deal is going on. You don't even know. They don't even disclose the sales price. We wonder, do they have to? But they don't. They just disclose in the public, hey, there's been a change of hands for this place of land. That doesn't mean that it wasn't a sale. But sometimes the reports don't disclose the sale price. Oh, George Christian, that's very custom. Oh, really? Shows the difference between public and private. Where they don't have to disclose the sales price. How are they reporting that? We know how they're reporting it. And so we know they're doing it through a certain type of structures. When people come to us and they talk to us about these various different type of trust contracts, it's more than one, it's more than two, it's more than five. It's so many. Living trust though, came through living trust. Now they have to learn. Man, I gotta invest in my private education. If you wrote the living trust contract, you want to be in a private position. You invest in your private education. That's how that works. Because the private education is going to cost, whereas the public information, you could go to the public law library and go get the information. You can go to the public law library and get a public trust contract. You can go to the same contract that the attorney's going to get you, most likely from the county or that state. They're going to go to the law library, and the law library is at a college. The law library is at the county level, and they have a law library, and the contract is sitting there. Maybe very shorthand, nevertheless, it's shorthand, but it's still a public trust document. Basically, anybody that wants to be in the public trust, they got the format for you at the law library. Really? Yep. And it's pretty much, think about it, it's at the law library, so it's compliant. All you're going to do is just fill in the blanks. And they have alternative books that you could use for templates. They call them forms, pleadings, and procedures. That's a book at the law library, and it gives you the templates: forms, pleadings, which is how to write it, and the procedure on how to file it. Sometimes traditionally it's various different things that you're having to file. Some people say, oh, well, do I have to file a private trust in the public? That's one of the first questions we get in trustee training is they'll ask, what do they ask? They'll say, hey, Trust Christian, do I register the trust? That's what they say. Where do I register the private trust at? That's what they say. If it's private, it's not registered. Oh, okay. And then it just goes, it goes so far left sometimes. Whereas, ladies and gentlemen, if you're operating with a team in trusteeship in the private sector, a family, it's easy to make things happen. Whereas if it's solo trustees, maybe they do get scared. Maybe that's the case. If you all are listening right now and you get scared because you may have to be the sole trustee for the family estate in the beginning, hey, please type into the chat that that's your challenge. And we can share with you how to solve that. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's building out a team, it's selecting high grade talent, it's surrounding yourself around other trustees. When we put together workshops, we surround ourselves with other trustees. We think about right now, we just keep seeing this one pop up because it must be a grand year because we just keep seeing this one pop up. And it's always been a great one. It's actually one of the better ones we go to, very educational. But this is what happens when you get in a room with the billionaires. When you get in a room with the billionaires, you can have high level conversations. And it's not about, oh, you know, small things of the structure because when you're sitting in a room and you say, oh, I'm a billionaire, clearly they have more than 20 entities. Clearly they have more than 5 entities. So if you're looking to attain certain levels in life, there's going to be more than one entity, more than two, more than three. So you just see that living is one element of it. It's not all of it. And so sometimes you may see some people say, oh, well, uh, I just don't know which one to go into. I need to transfer some things. I need to do these things. Ladies and gentlemen, even if you were to do living, it's not a bad decision. It's just one of those things where we see the living. How are you advantageous when it's public? Trustees come to us because they want to be private. So that's the audience that we cater to at the vault. Our audience is private trustees, people that really they don't just sit around and say, oh, there's no such thing as privacy. You know, even when it comes to their cell phone, they are aware that it's a piece of property of the family estate, just like the vehicles that they have. They're very aware of that. In 2025, the families that are in the private sector are going to thrive because they understand privacy all along. Think about the current president that's in office. They understand privacy. So this is going to be a campaign that's really going to be catered towards privacy for sure. And so just to keep everyone on notice that public is living, private. They say, well, what is private trust Christian default? If it's going to be private, which one is it going to be? It's not living now. Uh, Here we go. It's public because it has public laws in it. It's private because it doesn't. That's one aspect of it. And think about it. If you go to the public law library and you get it from the public law library, all you're going to do is just get one for that has public laws in it. So that's why we always share with trustees that we worked with families, and that's why we know what we know. We were invited into private rooms, and we you could say make it a point to be of value in those relationships. And so we always are extending the olive branch to trustees. Trustees actually are with us when we do research and development. That's what the vault is. It shares information that some people would say they don't have. Oh, well, I'm in the public, but I don't have this information, Trust Christian, in the vault. Okay, well, if you don't have the information, we're going to make sure that we at least talk about it in the public. Some people say, oh, I'm going to pass along the estate the proper way. First of all, the estate can go through probate through a living trust. Straight up. The way, depending on how it's structured. And if you don't know how it's structured. So, we might do an episode where people be like, oh, I need a lawyer. Everybody says they need a lawyer when they get in trusteeship. Well, if you do, excuse us, if you do, if you need an attorney, did you go to the local law library, get the document, and get them to look over it? How about that? Did you get them to look over it? Because this is where, yes, you do meet the attorney for lunch. You say, hey, I need you to look over the doc. I need you to look over the trust. How many people are willing to go pay the attorney to look over it, but then they got to come to the vote? And then what do they say? Hey, Trust Christian to vote. We need you to look over our stuff. Cool, we do that. Consultation, Christian at trustchristian.com. Christian at trustchristian.com. People, oh man, I just need you to look over it. I'll mail it to you. Mailed it to us many times. Yep, look over it. All right, look, so we're just going to go over the structure. We're going to go over the structure in the public. We're going to go over the structure in the private. And we're going to show you how the structures compare. Oh, I'm going to sit on the line and try to compare structures. You don't need to compare structures. And when we say you don't need, we say that with all humbleness and meekness of, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming from the private perspective at the vault. The living trust is a public perspective. We don't promote anything of that sort. Those are things that you see on the public sector. We could point out many vehicles that the public sector will point out, but how can you point out only one trust or two trusts or three trusts, but then there's over 80? So at the vault, we're very trust agnostic. We can walk into any situation, and so that's why we can share the information and go about it the way that we do, because we're talking about it from that perspective, not from a one, oh, you got to do it. Some people even come to, we hear people coming to the vault, oh man, do I got to go private? Do I got to go get into private trusteeship? Well, so now we got private trustees saying that trustees should go get in a living trust. Y'all think they don't say this? They say this. And we're sitting there like, so you went through private trustee training. And now you think new trustees, because the trustee training is just and not even just trustee training, the lifestyle of a trustee is such a new thing. How much is the endeavor? Okay. Well, you think about it, it's less than a college course. Really? Definitely. Okay. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to go ahead and share with y'all a small little perspective. Okay. You're looking to protect your family estate. We know a family event. It's a wealthy family event. We're just going to go ahead and say the price. Even if the event costs $1,000, you're going to have to spend $1,000 to get there. And food. So we'll say it's $2,000. Now, what do you get for $2,000 in the room? You get an education because they're training, actually doing a wealthy family training, not trust specific, and you're getting into relationships. Hey, we don't know you, but now we do. Okay. We share that with trustees all the time. How many trustees are going to go out and go to the events? So Trust Christian and the Vault's been going to the events for years, doing the research for years. Trustees hear the recordings, and guess what? You hear money plays being made. Deals are getting done, ladies and gentlemen. Oh man, where is our family estate going to come in this situation, Trust Christian and the Vault? If it costs you less than, if you think about it, if you have less than $1 million, or you have $1 million, and you only have to pay $10,000 to protect your family estate for the rest of your life, at least the initial, that's what that most people will look at. And it's not even that. We just said it was $2,000 to go to the event and meet. That was one event. Ladies and gentlemen, the private events are going to cost you. We're not looking to tell you that you have to do it. We just know that's what it is. Is it true? Yes. So some people say, "Oh man, I got it. We got to invest in the family. We got to invest in somebody so they could go to the family estate events." Right. If it's four of y'all gonna have to invest in one going, maybe two. We've had many young families come through. We've had young families come through too. Shout out to some young families. Shout out to some young families that we've had come through for sure. Under 30s. And they, a whole group of them, it was actually four of them. And maybe even five. It was just like, wow, a group of young ones. And they trustee training. We're going to read out a comment somebody just typed in, so just give us a second. Oh, here, so justice for all. Yeah, so interesting you say that because one of our mentors, we're going to do an interview with and bring him on the platform. They'll say that most of them don't even know. Most of them don't even know. And that's the wild part about it. So when we get trustees that go through trustee training and they're a next level ahead or a next step ahead, of course it feels a little, oh, I know a lot now. How come they don't know it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, because you've been trained in the private thoroughly now, and you are aware that people in the public don't know what you're talking about. And it can be a little what people call frustrating or otherwise. But what it is it's one of those things that just know how to converse with people that are in the public now and know how to operate in the private properly. That's all. Living trust equals public. Well, if they don't know, you know. So we know we're not operating the living. Or what we going to do? Testamentary? What we going to do? Sesticate? All of these sound like public. What's private? Without the public law. Contract makes the law. Appreciate you all. Look forward to hearing from you all. Christian at trustchristian.com. Christian at trustchristian.com. Peace and